Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm bringing you another reading vlog. In today's reading vlog, I'm going to be reading books that start with uncommon letters, specifically V, X, and Z. This video concept may or may not have been a way to push Vespertine up my TBR, while also having a fun vlog concept to go along with it. I was trying to figure out a fun reading vlog that I could include Vespertine in, and one of my channel members mentioned in a live stream that I could just read books that are titled with untitled letters, and I decided to run with it, so thank you, Beth. I appreciate the idea. This did get me thinking though about the alphabet book title challenges, where you give a book title or a book recommendation for every letter in the alphabet, and I feel like I definitely would not be able to give some recommendations for some of those letters. I think at some point in this video I'm going to write out the alphabet and see how many letters in the alphabet I have a book for, but we're starting with V today obviously because I want to read Vespertine. I don't think that I've ever read a book that starts with V, but there is a chance that I may or may not have read a book that starts with V. If I have, I probably blocked it from my memory, so we're just gonna read Vespertine for my V. I've been on a Margaret Rogerson kick lately, and all of her books have just been hitting so differently. Like, they are just so good, and I'm so mad at myself for putting them off for so long, but maybe I'm just reading them at the right time in my life because they're all working for me, and I can't really complain about it. In this book, we are following our main character, Artemisia, who is training to become a nun that cleanses the bodies of the deceased in order for their souls to pass on. That does not sound like a very fun job. When her covenant is attacked, in order to protect them, she ends up awakening an ancient spirit and gets possessed. I believe there's an evil force that begins to gain traction, and Artemisia is dealing not only with taking on that evil force and taking it down, but also now being possessed with a revenant. I'm very much so looking forward to getting into this one and seeing how I feel about it. Without further ado, let's get to reading. Reading update time. I'm probably like around halfway into Vespertine. I'm on chapter 13, page 176, and it's no surprise that I am liking this one a lot. I kind of went into this one expecting that I was going to like it, just because I feel like with Margaret Rogerson lately, it's been banger after banger, which has me so excited. I feel like I genuinely have a new favorite author, even though her books for me so far have not been like 5-star reads across the board necessarily. Like, they've been pretty solid 4 out of 5 stars, but even going into this book, knowing that it has the potential to be like a 4-star read is exciting to me, okay? This one feels like a bit of a departure from Margaret Rogerson's other books, honestly. Like, it just feels so different in terms of the tone. It feels much more gloomy, and it just feels like there's like a gray cloud hovering over the story as I'm reading it. I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but it just has that sort of like gloomy quality to it, and I'm really liking that. The pacing has been nice so far. I would say that there are moments that are rather slow, but I think because I'm so invested in what's happening, the plot, and then also in terms of the characters. Oh my god, the characters. I feel like because of that, I'm able to kind of like overlook the slow pacing, which I think that that's how I normally feel about slower paced books. Like, I have to be really invested in the story, or I have to be really invested in the characters for my patience to be like, okay, I can settle down and just hang out and just vibe with the slower pacing. But if I'm not invested in the story and I'm not invested in the characters, then I'm gonna have a hard time with that slower pacing. I feel like I'm noticing a theme with me and Margaret Rogerson's books, and that is the fact that I just vibe so much with her characters. Like, I love her characters so much. If there's one thing she's gonna for sure deliver on, it's the characters. Like, that's one thing that I feel like I can for sure expect going into a Margaret Rogerson book now. How many times am I gonna say the author's name? But it's the fact that I'm going to love the characters, and that is no exception here. Also, on top of everything, I just feel like the concept itself is being executed so well. A nun taking on spirits, it's a slay for me. I'm loving it. I'm excited to carry on, keep reading, and see how everything comes together in the end. It's a rather like gray and gloomy day. I think it's supposed to rain most of this week, which is exciting because what's better than a reading session while it's raining outside? Nothing, absolutely nothing compares, in my opinion. I played Dress to Impress for the first time with my friends last night, and it was so much fun. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about the viral Roblox game, but it's so much fun. I couldn't believe how fast time passed. I remember we started playing at 7:30, and then the next time I looked at the clock, it was like 9:30, and I was like, where did the time go? Basically, you're given a theme, and you have to come up with an outfit for that theme, and then there's like a runway situation, and everybody rates each of the outfits. Some of the themes we got were angel or devil, we got emotions, we got movie star, things like that, and it was just a good old time. The only other thing that I have on my agenda today, besides reading Vespertine, is going back to the gym. I haven't been to the gym in like 2 weeks. I kind of fell off the horse there for a second, but I'm getting back on the horse. I'm a little bit nervous to go back today because after you take a break from going to the gym, it's so much harder to get back to it. And I just feel like sluggish and not excited about it, but like I also know the fact that I need to get back to it, because if I don't get back to it, I'll never get back to it. So I'm going today, going back to the gym, getting back to swimming laps. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but we're gonna fight the good fight, get out there and swim some laps. Let's go. It's reading update time. I finished reading update time. I finished Vespertine and I really enjoyed it, but it's never good when you say something like that and then you add but at the end of it. But it does fall lowest in my rankings of Margaret Rogerson's books. I would say top tier is Sorcery of Thorns, then An Enchantment of Ravens, and then Vespertine, but they're all really great. The possession aspect of this book was oddly my favorite aspect of the book. The back and forth between our main character Artemisia and the Revenant was so good, was so fantastic. I feel like this book is kind of drowning in darkness, truthfully. Like, it's a very gloomy book. The atmosphere is very like dark and grim and bleak, and I feel like that kind of back and forth, that banter, if you will, really brought something that this book needed to kind of shape it out and not only be drowning in that darkness. Like, it really brought in some humor, it brought in some angst and some sass as well, and I just feel like this book really needed that dialogue, that back and forth, to really kind of not have it just be this like really dark book. It was a way to really add sort of a break from that bleakness, and I really appreciated that. You get really solid character shaping in this book, and we see that with Artemisia. As the story is progressing, more and more of her backstory is being unveiled, and it solidifies her motives and her actions, which again, Rogerson's characters are some of the best in YA. I feel like as I was reading this, I was kind of like trying to figure out why I love her character so much, and I think it's because it reminds me of like old school YA. I feel like a lot of YA books that have come out in the past few years, something that I've like not really enjoyed are the characters. Like, I felt like the character work was not that great, and I feel like we used to have so many fantastic characters in young adult literature that were like standouts. Like, when you thought of those books, you would think of the characters and you would be reminded of their personalities and what they stood for and like every aspect of those characters. But there for a while I would read YA books and the characters were just like not memorable characters. So it's nice to like have an author that's like doing it like they used to do it. I just feel like a lot of character work in young adult books that have come out in the past few years have not been that great. Obviously I have not read every YA book ever, so I'm not saying that every young adult book ever is that way, but a lot of the ones that I read have felt that way. I've missed that like character work, getting solid backstories, solid personalities, etc., etc. Also, if you're somebody that wants a break from romance in fantasy books, I highly recommend this book. It was so refreshing to not have a romance in a fantasy. A YA fantasy in particular, because I feel like a lot of YA fantasies have a romance element in it, and it's nice to just have a break from that. Romance free zone. Now, I did end up giving this book a 4-star rating, a 4 out of 5 star rating, and the reason I knocked it, one is because it just didn't stand out to me. Like, again, comparing it to Margaret Rogerson's other books, Sorcery of Thorns and Enchantment of Raven, it didn't compare to those to me in my mind. And so if I were to give this book a 5 out of 5 stars, it wouldn't make sense because I only gave those books 4 out of 5 stars. So comparing it to that, this is not a 5-star read. And also it just like did not have that standout quality. While I really enjoyed it, it did not stand out as a 5-star read in my mind. But one of the complaints that I had, and another big reason as to why I knocked it a star, is because I felt like there were moments where it just felt like not a lot was happening. There were moments where I found myself feeling like I was about to get bored. And that's never something that you want to feel while you're reading a book. Like, you never want to be bored and want to be like, maybe I'll set this aside and do something else. So there were just a few moments in the story where I just didn't feel as invested as I would have liked. Almost dropped it, book overboard. Other than that though, again, 4 out of 5 stars, really enjoyed it, and I definitely still recommend it. Now it is time to pick out our next read. We are moving on from V to X. Let's go pick out the next read. Alright, I have definitely never read a book titled with X, so I'm excited to mark this off my alphabet book letter bucket list. That is non-existent, I just made that up on the spot, but maybe I should have an alphabet book bucket list. I'm going to be reading an ebook for this, which I haven't done in a very long time, and my e-reader itself will not hold a charge, so that's super helpful. I've plugged it in several times, and no matter what, it just stays on the low battery screen, so that's super helpful and just what I needed to happen for this video. But thankfully, I have a backup plan. We've got my iPad, which will come through. I'm going to be reading a book literally titled X, perfect for the letter X. I got this as a Kindle Daily Deal at some point, and it's just a a fictionalized version of Malcolm X's life, or I guess his life before he became an activist, written in part by his daughter, and we're following his life growing up and the troubles that he finds himself in and what eventually leads him to becoming, again, the activist that he became. I've been meaning to pick up a book about Malcolm X for a while now, so I feel like this will be a good place to start, and then from here, maybe I will explore other books out there. I know there's an autobiography out there, so I feel like that would be the next step, but I'm excited to read this. Without further ado, let's get started. Update time. I have not filmed for this vlog in like 5 days because I got sick. I've basically been bedridden for the past 5 days, just been coughing, sneezing, snotting, all that comes with being sick. It was a great time. Not really. I hate being sick. Well, okay, I hate being sick, but I love that being sick forces you to relax. It's like, yo, slow down, take care of yourself, do nothing. Because normally I'm like a no chill, always gotta be doing something kind of guy. So it's been nice to kind of be forced to lay in bed and binge watch Survivor, because that's basically what I did. I also did finish X, which we're going to talk about. I want to be clear that I enjoyed this. I enjoyed learning about Malcolm X's life. I just feel like I would have much preferred to have just read maybe his autobiography. Obviously, I read this because it's literally titled X, and so it fits perfectly with this video concept. I wish that I wouldn't have read a fictionalized version of his life, which there are things in here that obviously did happen, but they had to change names, they had to change different scenarios. It talks a little bit about it at the end. There's a little excerpt talking about things that they had to change. I also felt like this book is mostly just like build up to this transformation that he has, which it is really cool to see how all of the things that happened in his life kind of led to where he ended up. It's mostly a book that is built up on build up. So you're seeing Malcolm X kind of make mistake after mistake, and it takes a while to reach the end and see what those mistakes lead to and like the lessons that he learns. And the end, which was my favorite part, like towards the end, it got so intriguing, it got so interesting, specifically when he is in jail and also when he begins to process his father's death, because his father's death was a really big, impactful thing that he did not process right when it happened. It took him some time to kind of like put the pieces together on how that impacted his life and how that played into his transformation. But that aspect was my favorite part, and that ending part was so fast. It just felt like it came and went so quickly, and I just needed more from the ending, which is why I wish I would have just read maybe the autobiography and just read kind of what came with that aftermath, because it's really just leading up to this big moment in his life where he changes, and I just wanted to see more of that aftermath, I guess, which is why I need to just pick up his autobiography and read it. I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars, a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I would recommend it as a starting point in terms of like literature about Malcolm X. I have not read enough to know where to start. If anybody has any recommendations, drop it for me down below in the comments. And I think that this also is for younger people to have a starting point with Malcolm X, which I can see that being a good place for young people to start in learning about his life, because this is a YA book, so it makes sense that I am just not the correct audience for it. Let's go to the next letter, the final letter. The last letter we have landed on is Z, or Z, whatever you want to call it. I call it Z, but if you call it Z, that's acceptable too. Whatever you want to do, live your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Stop, Jesse, stop. For Z, I'm going to be reading Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor. This is an author that I've been really wanting to read from. I've also been in the mood for a middle grade fantasy for a second now. I just have a hard time prioritizing middle grade fantasy, but I'm glad that this video is pushing me to read one. The concept for this one sounds like an A+ concept. I'm really hoping that it's a situation where the concept is executed well, or is executed in a way that makes me feel satisfied, because otherwise I will be devastated. We are following our main character, Zachary, obviously, and he one day finds out that he was born to host the spirit of the first emperor of China and help carry out a vital mission. I'm still sick, okay? That mission being to seal this leaking portal that leads to the Chinese underworld. And they need to seal this portal before the upcoming Ghost Month, because if they don't, then it's gonna be blown open and all these like spirits and things are gonna leave the underworld and seep into the real world, and it's gonna cause lots of problems. So they need to seal the portal ASAP. That's the situation here. I'm so excited about it. It sounds fantastic. Without further ado, let's get to reading. It's reading update time. I'm on chapter 13, page 186. Y'all, I am pretty much obsessed. Zachary Ying is doing the dang thing, and that dang thing is winning my heart over. I am loving everything about this book. It's just what I wanted in terms of a middle grade fantasy. It's very reminiscent of Percy Jackson. It is incorporating a lot of Chinese mythology, and the plot is heavily utilizing that mythology and pushing the book forward, and I feel like I'm learning so much about Chinese mythology. I also didn't realize that this book was going to incorporate a video game element, but there's a use of a game. Specifically, there's a utilization of VR, which I've never messed with VR. I feel like VR itself would make me nauseous for some reason, just because I feel like I'm somebody that lately gets very nauseous with things. I think I'm just getting old. That's probably it. But I've been seeing a lot of movies at the IMAX lately, and I've been getting so nauseous watching movies on such a big screen. Anyway, that was a little side rant, but I love when a book incorporates a video game element and utilizes it in a way that works, because I've seen it be done in a way where it doesn't necessarily work, or it doesn't really add anything, or it just feels too similar to Spy Kids 3. But I'm really enjoying the incorporation of the video game elements. As a gamer myself, I just get really excited when gaming is incorporated in some kind of way. And again, specifically when it is done really well, and I feel like it's utilized really well in this book. If you love a tight trio of characters, we've got a really fun trio happening here. I won't say that they're the best of friends yet, but I feel like they're working towards that. Two other kids join Zachary on his quest, and they're also being possessed by historical figures. Lots of possession happening in this book. Love to see it. I've read 2 books in this video now that have had possession, and I've really enjoyed the possession element, so I don't know what that's saying about me, but maybe I just need to read more books that have a possession element, because clearly it's something that I am enjoying. Again, in terms of the Chinese mythology, I feel like I'm learning so much about Chinese culture and Chinese mythology, which Zach himself hadn't been exposed to a lot of Chinese mythology and a lot of Chinese history, and so I feel like I'm learning alongside him. Obviously, I'm not using this as a textbook, because I don't think you should ever use a work of fiction as textbook, but it is inspiring me to want to go out and read more books on Chinese history, Chinese culture, and also maybe watch some documentaries. I love a good documentary. If you guys have any good documentary recommendations for me, specifically on China, definitely let me know down below in the comments. A lot of the things that have been brought up have just been really fascinating, and has really kind of caused a storm of curiosity to stir up inside me, so I'm definitely looking forward to going beyond this book and doing my own research, so that excites me a lot. I'm really enjoying this though. I feel like this is just what I needed. It's kind of been a breath of fresh air. I just forgot how much fun middle grade fiction can be. Also, there's so many pop culture references throughout this book, so if you're somebody that enjoys pop culture references, definitely check this out. Obviously, on the other side of that coin, if you are somebody that really detests pop culture references, I wouldn't recommend this book necessarily. I'm excited to keep reading this and see where things go. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a standalone or a series. My hope is that it's going to be a standalone, but I also just feel like it's probably going to lead into a series situation. I just feel like there's so much going on that I can't imagine it just being a one and done situation, because we would have a lot to cover in the second half of this book, and I just don't know if everything can be tied up in that amount of pages. I don't know. We'll see. I went and saw the new Alien movie last night. Got to support my local hometown actress, Kaylee Spaney. We went to the same school. I don't remember her at all, but it's still really cool to be I went to school with Kaylee Spaney, even though I don't remember her at all. I need to look in my yearbooks and see if I can find a picture of her somewhere. But the movie was so good. It was actually my kind of introduction into the Alien franchise. I had never seen any of the Alien movies in the past, but I just felt like this movie was just so good in terms of the plot and the action, the thrill, the horror. I felt like it just kept going too. There was a point in the film where I thought it was going to come to a close and the credits were going to start rolling, but it just kept going. Let me know if any of you guys are familiar with the Alien franchise, and if you have any recommendations for me as to what I should watch. This has been such a weird week for me because I just have not been getting out and doing much, so it was nice to be able to get out last night and go see a movie, but I am definitely feeling it today. I went and did something after being cooped up in the house for 5 days, and now I'm exhausted. I just want to lay around all day. So I'm gonna lay around all day and read the rest of this book. I'll update you guys when I'm finished. Finished Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor, and I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I'm giving this a 5-star rating, a 5 out of 5 stars, baby! I don't know if it's a book that's going to click with a lot of people. Specifically, I feel like a lot of people will not necessarily enjoy how much Chinese history and mythology comes into play, and to those people I say, if you're boring, just say that, okay? Like, I so enjoyed all the history, all the mythology that comes into play, and there's so much of it. I feel like it is such a driving force throughout this book, and it just worked out so well for me. And again, it's like pushing me to want to go beyond this book and learn so much more, watch documentaries, read books. So I'm excited about the door that it opened up for me in my curiosity and learning more about China. In this book, or rather at the beginning of the book, we explore Zach and him being a minority. At his school, he's one of the only Chinese kids there, and so this sort of has an effect on him in a way that makes him self-conscious because, for example, he would have a lunch that his mom made him, and it might be some kind of Chinese dish, and the kids around him are unfamiliar with it, and so they're like, ooh, that looks gross, or ooh, that smells disgusting, and so he ends up just becoming self-conscious about his identity, and he just wants to, like, fit in and not cause any trouble or not feel judged in any kind of way. And so he sort of does things in order to fit in with the people around him. And I feel like we go on such a big journey with Zach throughout this book in him learning more about his culture and more about where his family came from. And we see this sort of switch, this sort of shift in how he views his culture and his perspective on being Chinese. And it's just such a beautiful progression, and I loved seeing that. I feel like this does such a good job of showcasing character growth in particular. I loved that element of it. Zachary is not the same person that he is by the end of this book, and I just loved going on that journey with him and exploring who he became by the end of it. Speaking of the end, this book definitely ends in a way where it's like, there's so much more that's coming, but I've Googled and I can't find anything out about a sequel, and this book came out quite a while ago, so I don't know what the situation is there. I need to dig a little bit deeper, I guess, but it definitely ends on a way where it's like, there needs to be another book. Or at least, I don't know if that's just me wanting another book, but there's definitely this feeling of like, this can't be it. Like, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be another book coming. So I will be patient about that, but I highly recommend this book if it sounds interesting to you. Again, all the things that I mentioned. We've got pop culture, Chinese mythology and history. We've got a video game element. We've got possession. If any of those things sound interesting to you, I definitely recommend checking this book out. I feel like there's so many fun and exciting things that happen throughout this book, and I just so enjoyed my time reading it. So highly recommend it, again, if it sounds like something that you would enjoy. There was a mention of that meme that I completely forgot about, Leroy Jenkins, in this book. I was like, Leroy Jenkins? What's that doing in here? What a fantastic and classic meme. I ended up writing out the alphabet and seeing if I could just come up with a book for each letter in the alphabet, because I just wasn't sure if I had read a book for every letter in the alphabet. So I'm going to go through that list right now. I don't know if any of you guys care, but I'm going to share it with you guys. These are not necessarily books that I highly recommend for each letter. I was just trying to see if I could fill the alphabet with books. For A, we've got Allegiant, B, Behemoth, C, Catching Fire, D, Delirium, E, Everything Everything, F, Faking Normal, G, Grasshopper Jungle, what a weird book, H, Horton's Miraculous Mechanisms, I, Insurgent, J, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, K, Kafka on the Shore. I have not read many books that start with K, by the way. That was one that I was struggling with, but I remembered that I read Kafka on the Shore twice. We've got L, Legend, M, More Happy Than Not, N, Nimona, O, Obsidian, P, Prodigy, Q, Queen of Shadows, R, Ready Player One, S, Sleeping Giants, T, The Trick, U, Under Rose-Tainted Skies, V, Vespertine. I also have read Vicious. I don't know why I thought that V was a letter that I hadn't read, but I definitely have. W, We Were Liars, X, Y, You've Reached Sam, and Z, Zachary Ying, but also I had read several Z books, Zombie and Zach and Mia. Z is not super uncommon for me, I guess. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I'm now going to be ranking the books, obviously. I love doing a little ranking at the end of these vlogs. In first place, we've got Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor. 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Then I would say Vespertine is coming in second place. Definitely not my favorite Margaret Rogerson, but still really good. And Clearly I have a new theme going where I love books that involve possession. And then last but not least, we've got X. It was a really great story. I just think that I would prefer to read a nonfiction book about Malcolm X. That's the tea. That's all I've got for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this vlog. Again, thank you to my channel member Beth for the suggestion, for the video suggestion. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Have you read a book for every letter of the alphabet? Can you fill the alphabet with books that you've read that start with each letter in the alphabet? That was such a complicated way of saying that. Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo!